The universe is not as static as it looks from the ground. Beyond the stars, beyond the nebulae, and even beyond the clusters of galaxies we call home, there is a river. We call it the dark flow, a mysterious, titanic current of spacetime that is pulling everything in our corner of the cosmos toward a single, unknown point beyond the observable horizon. For billions of years, galaxies have drifted along this invisible tide, unaware of the destination. But the Void Raiders, a nomadic collective of intergalactic scavengers we called the Drifters, didn't just drift. They mastered the current. They built gravity sleds that could surf the dark flow, allowing them to move between galactic clusters at speeds that bypassed every radar and every sensor we had. They were the ghosts of the Great Void. They would emerge from the lightless spaces, strip a star system of its heavy metals and biological matter, and then vanish back into the flow, moving downstream, where no human ship could ever hope to catch them. To the Drifters, the Milky Way was just a roadside stop, and humanity was just the local wildlife they could harvest with impunity. They thought the dark flow was their ultimate escape route. They assumed that because it was a one-way street of universal proportions, they could never be pursued. They believed that because we were anchored to our stars by gravity, we were prisoners of our own territory. They were catastrophically wrong. They forgot that the history of humanity is the history of the sailor. We didn't just learn to float on the water, we learned to sail against the wind. If the Drifters wanted to use the current of the universe to flee their crimes, we decided to build a ship that could tack against the very fabric of spacetime. We created the Tidal Bore Protocol. And we birthed the second intergalactic intercept wing, the Counter-Current-Commandos. We don't use standard thrusters for this. In the Great Void, a fusion engine is just a candle in a hurricane. Our ships, the Sovereign-class cruisers, are built around dark matter sails, massive, iridescent sheets of captured shadow matter spanning hundreds of kilometers. These sails don't catch light, they catch the dark flow itself. By manipulating the polarity of the dark matter, we can create gravitational lift, allowing us to tack against the universal current. We are the only beings in existence who can move upstream against the flow of the cosmos. We don't carry missiles that fly through space. We carry gravity anchors that we fire into the current to create localized whirlpools. We are the Counter-Current-Commandos, and we're about to show the Drifters that the tide has just turned. I am Commodore Silas Tide Vane. My neural link is currently managing the tension of a sail larger than a moon, and the vibration of the dark flow is humming through my teeth. And I'm about to close the distance. The mission was the Horizon Catch. A massive drifter raiding fleet had just finished stripping the Centauri Prime colony and was currently entering the dark flow, accelerating toward the cosmic horizon. If they reached the crossover point, they would be moving too fast for any weapon to lock on. Deploy the sails. Unfold the shadow. I want to feel the tension in the bedrock of the ship. I roared into the link. Outside the Vanguard, the massive carbon nanotube mass began to extend. The dark matter sails unfurled, looking like a shimmering, translucent purple nebula stretching out into the blackness. The moment the sails caught the dark flow, the ship jerked violently. It wasn't a physical impact. It was the sensation of being pulled by the very gravity of the universe. Wrangler 2 Sarah, sails at 40%. The drag is immense, Silas. The hull is groaning under the tidal stress. We're tacking against the flow at Mach 200 and climbing. Wrangler 3 Jax, I've got the Drifter fleet on long-range sonar. They're downstream and accelerating. They haven't seen us yet because we're coming from the lightless sector. The Drifters were overconfident. They were moving with the current, their engines cold to save fuel, relying on the natural expansion of the flow to carry them away. They looked like a cluster of jagged, obsidian shards, ships built for speed and scavenging, not for a heavyweight fight. Align the lift. Prepare the gravity anchors. We tilted the sails. By catching the dark flow at a 45-degree angle, we converted the universal pull into forward momentum. We weren't just moving, we were surfing upstream. The Vanguard began to glow with a brilliant blue Cherenkov radiation as we sliced through the dark matter sea. They've seen us. The Drifter lead ship is lighting up its reactors. Sarah yelled. The Drifters panicked. They tried to dive deeper into the current, increasing their speed. But we were already in the high wind zone. We had more tension in our sails than they had in their engines. Fire the anchors. Snap the current. We fired 4 gravity anchors, massive spheres of hyperdense matter. They didn't hit the alien ships. They hit the water. As the anchors embedded themselves into the dark flow, they created a massive, localized tidal bore, a standing wave of gravity that acted like a brick wall in the middle of a fast-moving river. The drifter fleet hit the wave. It was a catastrophic collision of physics. The obsidian ships, moving at relativistic speeds with the current, were suddenly forced to a near halt by the gravitational wall we had created. Their hulls, built for light scavenging, couldn't handle the sudden deceleration. 3 of their escort ships simply shattered, their pieces being swept upstream, past us like debris in a storm. They're stalled. Engage the intercept. We retracted our sails to minimize our profile and ignited our primary fusion burn. We dove into the wreckage of the drifter fleet. These weren't honorable warriors, they were cowards who hid behind the horizon. We didn't give them a chance to surrender. I leveled the Vanguard's primary kinetic battery, a massive railgun that fired void slugs coated in antimatter. Toem. The slugs tore through the lead drifter ship. Without the momentum of the flow to protect them, their phase shields were useless. The slugs ripped through the obsidian armor, the antimatter detonating inside the alien fuel cells. The drifter flagship turned into a brilliant orange and black fireball that was quickly stretched out by the surrounding current. Sarah. Jax. Boarding action. We need the data cores from their navigation banks. We didn't send shuttles. We used void leapers, soldiers in pressurized suits with high-output thrusters. They launched from our side ports, flying through the lightless vacuum toward the drifting alien wrecks. I watched on the HUD as Sarah and her team landed on the jagged hull of a drifter cruiser. We're on the skin, cutting through the primary hatch. Sarah's voice was steady despite the fact that she was floating in the middle of a literal cosmic void. Inside the drifter ships, the combat was visceral and cramped. The drifters were spindly, gray-skinned beings with multiple eyes designed for low-light environments. They fought with shadow blades, weapons that could cut through armor by vibrating at the frequency of the void. But the commandos were faster. They used flare grenades to blind the aliens and then finished them with high-velocity pulse pistons. Data core secured. We've got their navigation maps for the whole Great Void. Get back to the ship. The anchors are failing. The gravity anchors were being pulled away by the sheer weight of the dark flow. The tidal bore was starting to collapse. If we didn't clear the area, we would be caught in the snapback as the current regained its original speed. Sails in. Engines at 100%. Pull us out. We fired our emergency thrusters, the Vanguard groaning as it clawed its way out of the gravitational whirlpool we had created. We cleared the zone just as the anchors snapped. The dark flow surged back into its original path with a roar of radiation that shook our ship to the core. The remains of the drifter raiding fleet were swept away toward the horizon, now just a collection of lifeless metal and frozen bodies. They had wanted to travel beyond the horizon and now they would, but as ghosts. I stood in the command center, watching the iridescent purple glow of the dark flow recede as we moved back toward the safety of the galactic rim. My neural link was hissing as it powered down, the tension in my mind finally easing. We had been to the edge of the known world and back. Sarah. Jax, report. I rasped, the silence of the bridge feeling heavy. I'm here, Silas. I've got the course. My suit is covered in gray blood, but I'm whole. The current is back to normal. Jax here. All anchors expended, but the hull is holding. We showed them tide. You can't outrun a sailor. I looked out at the distant, shimmering spiral of the Milky Way. It looked so small and fragile from here, a tiny island in a vast, moving ocean. We were the ones who stood on the shore. We were the ones who watched the horizon. And as long as humanity had the will to build a sail, there would be no safe haven for those who tried to hide in the dark. Humanity has proven the ultimate truth of the cosmic extremis. You can use the currents of the universe to hide. You can drift beyond the reach of the stars. You can tell us that the void is your kingdom. But we are the species that knows how to tack against the wind. We are the Counter-Current-Commandos. And we will find you no matter how far the river flows. The raiders are shattered. The core is secured. The tide is ours. The mission is over. Now take us home. I'm tired of the dark.